The era of hold my beer and watch this had begun. Little did the universe know just how wild the ride was about to become. As Dave led his ragtag group of alien scientists out of the amphitheater, the reality of what had just transpired began to sink in. Here was a human, a member of a species that had only recently discovered that you shouldn't use your teeth to open beer bottles, about to revolutionize galactic science. Professor Zixnorp, still reeling from the shock, found himself trotting alongside Dave. His tentacles, finally unknotted, now flailed about in a mixture of excitement and terror. "Mr. Johnson," he ventured, "I must confess, I'm both thrilled and terrified by the prospects of your methodology." Dave grinned, slinging an arm around what he hoped was the alien's shoulder. "That's the sweet spot, Prof. If you're not at least a little terrified, you're not doing science right. But our entire understanding of the scientific method." "He was about to get a major upgrade," Dave interrupted, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "They'll think about it. You guys have been plugging away at the same old problems for millennia. And what's it gotten you? A test that takes a lifetime to complete. Boring." Professor Cordy, who had been rolling alongside them, chimed in. "But surely there must be some merit to our careful, methodical approach." Dave stopped, turning to face the assembled aliens. His expression was serious for a moment, which somehow terrified them even more than his usual grin. "Look," he said, "I'm not saying your way is wrong. It's gotten you this far, right? But sometimes you need to shake things up. Think outside the box, or in your case," he added, eyeing the alien that appeared to be a sentient cube, "think outside yourself." The cube alien looked confused but oddly flattered. "Here's the deal," Dave continued, warming to his subject. "Human history is full of incredible discoveries that happened by complete accident. Do you know how we discovered penicillin? Some dude left a petri dish out and it got moldy. Boom, modern medicine." The aliens listened enraptured as Dave regaled them with tales of human scientific endeavors. "And don't even get me started on how we figured out radiation," Dave chuckled. "Marie Curie carried radioactive materials in her pocket, for fun. Sure, it probably wasn't great for her health, but hey, no pain, no Nobel Prize, right?" Professor Zixnorp's eye stalks twirled in confusion. But that's incredibly dangerous. Surely you don't propose we adopt such reckless methods?" Dave's grin widened. "Oh, my sweet summer child," he said, completely forgetting that the concept of seasons might be lost on a being from a planet with 7 suns. "Reckless is our middle name." "Well, that and danger, but that's more of a weekend thing." As they walked, or rolled, or slithered, or whatever passed for locomotion among the assembled aliens, Dave continued his impromptu lecture on the virtues of human scientific methods. "You see," he explained, gesturing wildly and nearly taking out an alien's eye stalk in the process, "the problem with your approach is that you're too focused on avoiding mistakes. But mistakes are where the magic happens." "Magic?" squeaked a small, gelatinous alien. "Is that another human scientific principle?" Dave laughed. "Nah, that's what we call science we don't understand yet. Or card tricks. It's a flexible term." As they reached the university's main hall, Dave suddenly stopped, his eyes lighting up with an idea. The aliens, now conditioned to fear that particular expression, took a collective step back. "I've got it," Dave exclaimed. "We're going to start a new research project. Right here, right now. We'll call it Project Hold My Beer, rewriting the laws of physics one bad idea at a time." The aliens exchanged nervous glances. Professor Cordy-Uap's space bar began to tremble. "And what exactly will this project entail?" he asked, dreading the answer. Dave's grin threatened to split his face in two. "Simple. We're going to take every immutable law of physics you've got, and we're going to try to break it. Starting with," he paused for dramatic effect, "gravity." A gasp rippled through the alien crowd. One fainted, their crystalline body shattering into 1,000 pieces. "Don't worry, they're fine. Apparently that's just how their species takes naps. But gravity is fundamental to the universe." Professor Zixnorp protested, his tentacles tying themselves into knots again. "You can't just break gravity." Dave waggled his eyebrows. "Not with that attitude, we can't. Come on, where's your sense of adventure? Your thirst for knowledge? Your complete disregard for personal safety and the basic laws of nature?" The aliens looked at each other, a mixture of fear and excitement rippling through the group. Slowly, tentatively, one alien raised a appendage. I would like to disregard personal safety," it said, its voice quavering. "That's the spirit." Dave cheered. "Now who's got some anti-gravity ideas? And don't say it's impossible, or I swear I'll start juggling dark matter." As it turned out, when you tell a group of hyper-intelligent aliens that something's impossible, their first instinct is to prove you wrong. Within minutes, the hall was abuzz with increasingly wild theories about how to break gravity. "What if we reverse the polarity of the neutron flow?" suggested one alien. clearly a fan of Earth television. Could we perhaps create a localized field of anti-gravity particles? Posited another, its gelatinous body quivering with excitement. What if we just ask gravity really nicely to go away for a bit? Chimed in a third, earning confused stares from its peers. Dave listened to each suggestion, nodding enthusiastically. Yes, and surprisingly also yes, he exclaimed. See, this is what I'm talking about. You're thinking outside the box, or cube, he added, nodding to the cubic alien who was now trying to roll itself up a wall. Professor Zix Norp, who had been quietly having an existential crisis in the corner, finally spoke up. But how will we test these theories? We don't have the equipment, the funding, the safety protocols. Dave cut him off with a wave of his hand. Details. Where we're going, we don't need safety protocols. Is that another human scientific principle? Asked a timid voice from the back. Nah, Dave grinned, that's just a movie quote. But it sounds cool, doesn't it? Before anyone could protest further, Dave was already in motion. He grabbed what looked like a potted plant, but was actually a sentient being from a sedentary species. A handful of paper clips, and what he hoped was a stapler but might have been an alien baby. All right, team, he announced, his voice ringing with authority he definitely didn't have. We're going to build an anti-gravity device. And we're going to do it with whatever we can find in this room. Who's with me? To everyone's surprise, including their own, every alien raised an appendage or equivalent in agreement. The excitement was palpable. The air crackled with the energy of bad ideas and worse physics, and so began the greatest and possibly most dangerous scientific endeavor the galaxy had ever seen. Aliens who had spent millennia pondering the nature of reality were now gleefully taping paper clips to plants and chanting anti-gravity. Every matter. As the chaos unfolded, Professor Zix Norp sidled up to Dave. Mr. Johnson, he said, his voice a mixture of awe and concern. I must ask, do you really think this will work? Dave threw an arm around the alien's shoulders, or what he hoped were shoulders. Zix, my man, let me tell you a secret. Half the time we humans have no idea if something will work. We just try it and hope for the best. But that's terrifying, Zix Norp exclaimed. Exactly, Dave beamed. Isn't it great? As if on cue, there was a loud pop from across the room. A cloud of purple smoke erupted from what appeared to be a makeshift device cobbled together from office supplies and alien body parts. All ethically sourced, of course. It's working, screamed an excited alien voice. I think we've done it. We've broken gravity. The voice was cut off as the alien suddenly shot upwards, crashing through the ceiling and disappearing into the sky. For a moment there was silence. Then, as one, every being in the room turned to look at Dave. He shrugged, a sheepish grin spreading across his face. Well, he said, I guess you could say that experiment really took off. The room erupted in a mixture of groans, laughter, and existential screaming. And that, dear readers, was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, the university became ground zero for what could only be described as a scientific revolution, or possibly an elaborate practical joke. It was hard to tell the difference. News of the humans' unorthodox methods spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Soon, scientists from every corner of known space were flocking to the university, eager to participate in what was being hailed as the greatest paradigm shift since the discovery of faster-than-light travel, which, incidentally, had been invented by a Zorlak scientist who had accidentally sat on his calculator. The projects that emerged from this chaotic think tank were as brilliant as they were bizarre. A team of quantum physicists developed a way to communicate with parallel universes, only to discover that their alternate selves were equally confused by the whole ordeal. The biology department created a plant that could solve complex mathematical equations, but only if you watered it with coffee. The chemistry lab accidentally invented a new element that existed only on Tuesdays. And let's not even talk about what happened when the astrophysics department decided to boop a black hole on the nose. Spoiler alert, the black hole booped back. We're still cleaning up that mess. Through it all, Dave Johnson remained at the center of the chaos, dispensing wisdom, cracking jokes, and occasionally setting fire to the laws of physics. You see, he'd been explained to a group of awestruck alien grad students the key to human scientific progress is a perfect blend of curiosity, stubbornness, and a complete misunderstanding of the word impossible. One brave student raised a tentacle. But Mr. Johnson, surely there must be some things that are truly impossible. Dave's eyes twinkled with mischief. Kid, let me tell you about the time humans decided to strap themselves to a giant explosion just to visit a big rock in the sky. If that's possible, anything is. As the weeks turned into months, something remarkable began to happen. The galaxy, which had been stuck in a scientific rut for millennia, suddenly found itself on the brink of a new golden age of discovery. Breakthroughs that had eluded the greatest minds for generations were now being made on a daily basis. And while not all of these discoveries were immediately useful, the less said about the weaponized pineapple incident, the better. There was no denying the impact of this new human-inspired approach to science. Even Professor Zixnorp, who had initially been Dave's biggest skeptic, found himself caught up in the excitement. You know, he confided to Dave one day, his tentacles waving happily, "I haven't had this much fun since I was a young grad student, trying to prove that the universe was shaped like a donut." Dave raised an eyebrow. "Is it?" Zixnorp chuckled. No. Turns out it's more of a crueler shape, but that's not the point. The point is, we're asking questions again. Big, crazy, impossible questions. And somehow we're finding answers." Dave nodded sagely. "That's the human way, my friend. We don't just think outside the box. We set the box on fire and dance around it, howling at the moon. You do know we can see you when you do that, right?" Zixnorp asked, suddenly concerned. Dave just winked. "Of course we do. That's half the fun." As news of the scientific renaissance spread, it wasn't long before the Galactic Council took notice. A delegation was quickly dispatched to investigate this new human method of scientific inquiry. The day of their arrival, the university was a hive of activity. Alien scientists scurried about, trying to make their chaos look at least somewhat presentable. Dave, for his part, was surprisingly calm. "Relax, folks," he told the nervous academics. "We've got nothing to hide. Well, except for that thing in the basement, and the other thing in the attic. And maybe we should put a tarp over the quantum fluctuation in the parking lot. But other than that, we're golden." Golden. As the council members made their way through the university, their expressions ranged from shock to awe to outright disbelief. They watched as a team of physicists played quantum leapfrog, somehow managing to be in two places at once. They observed biologists having a heated debate with a potted plant and losing. They even witnessed a mathematician prove that, under certain conditions, two could indeed equal fish. Finally, the head of the council turned to Dave. "Mr. Johnson," she said, her voice a mixture of admiration and concern, "what you've accomplished here is unprecedented. But surely you must realize the potential dangers of this approach." Dave nodded solemnly. "Oh, absolutely. Blow stuff up on a daily basis, sometimes intentionally." The council member blinked, taken aback by his candor. "And this doesn't concern you?" Dave shrugged. "Look, progress isn't always pretty. Sometimes it's messy, explosive, and occasionally turns your hair blue for about a week. But that's how we learn. We try, we fail, we pick ourselves up, and we try again. And we're, usually with more safety goggles the second time around." The council members huddled together, whispering furiously. Finally, they turned back to Dave. "So, Mr. Johnson," the head of the council announced, "we've come to a decision. While your methods are unorthodox, to say the least, we cannot deny the results. Therefore, we've decided to officially endorse the human method of scientific inquiry across the galaxy." A cheer went up from the assembled scientists. Tentacles waved, eye stalks wobbled, and in one case, an alien's head literally exploded with joy. "Don't worry, they can regrow those. However," the council member continued, raising a hand for silence, "we do have one condition." Dave raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and what's that?" "You must promise to teach this method to others. We want Hold My Beer institutes established on every major scientific world in the galaxy." For a moment, Dave was speechless. Then, slowly, a grin spread across his face. "You want me to teach aliens how to think like humans?" he asked, his eyes twinkling with mischief. The council member nodded solemnly. "Indeed. Can you do it?" Dave threw his head back and laughed. "Oh, my friends," he said, wiping a tear from his eye, "you have no idea what you've just unleashed." And so, dear readers, that's how humanity's unique brand of curiosity, recklessness, and sheer audacity spread across the galaxy. In the years that followed, scientific progress advanced at an unprecedented rate. New worlds were discovered, new technologies were developed, and on at least 3 occasions the very fabric of reality was accidentally turned inside out. It got better. Dave Johnson, the human who had started it all, became a legend. Statues were erected in his honor, usually depicting him holding a beaker in one hand and a fire extinguisher in the other. His catchphrase, "Hold my beer and watch this," became the rallying cry of scientists everywhere. Continuing from where we left off, and as for the Omniscient Examination that had started this whole adventure, well, it was eventually replaced with Legestus Twist, the new test. But the new test. The Galactic scientific community now called it the Johnson Challenge. Instead of a lifetime of careful study, participants were given 24 hours, a random assortment of household items, and a simple instruction: do something impossible. The results were interesting, to say the least. But our story doesn't end there. Oh no, dear readers. The galaxy was about to discover that humans had only begun to scratch the surface of their potential for chaos, or innovation. 5 years after the infamous Hold My Beer incident, as it had come to be known, Dave found himself standing before the Galactic Council once again. This time, however, he wasn't alone. Flanking him were Professor Zix Norp, whose tentacles had long since given up on ever being unknotted, and Dr. Cordy, who had upgraded himself with a holographic projection system for easier communication. Esteemed members of the council, Dave began, his voice echoing through the grand chamber. I stand before you today to present the results of our 5-year experiment in human-inspired scientific methods. The council members leaned forward in anticipation. Some had extra appendages growing just to lean forward more dramatically. In the past 5 years, Dave continued, barely containing his grin, we have made approximately 42,069 major scientific breakthroughs, caused 7,353 minor explosions, accidentally created 18 new forms of life, most of which are thankfully harmless, and somehow managed to make toast that always lands butter side up. A murmur of impressed whispers rippled through the chamber. Making toast land butter side up had long been considered one of the universe's unsolvable mysteries, but our greatest achievement, Dave said, pausing for dramatic effect, is something that we believe will change the face of galactic civilization forever. The room fell silent. Even the ambient background hum of the universe seemed to hold its breath. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted non-binary entities, Dave announced, we have discovered the infinite improbability drive. The chamber erupted in chaos. Council members jumped to their feet, or equivalent appendages, shouting questions and exclamations in a cacophony of alien languages. Impossible. Preposterous. Ackermas. Does it come in blue? Dave held up his hands for silence. Now, I know what you're thinking. Dave, you're saying that's just something from a human work of fiction. And you'd be right. Or at least you would have been right 5 years ago. And he gestured to Professor Zix Norp, who nervously cleared his throat sacs. It's true, the alien professor confirmed. We were inspired by the concept from the human literary work and decided to see if we could make it a reality. After all, if humans could imagine it, surely the combined intellect of the galaxy's greatest minds could create it. Dr. Cordy chimed in, his keys clacking excitedly. The process involved quantum entanglement, multidimensional probability matrices, and a surprising amount of tea. Dave nodded sagely. Turns out the secret ingredient was Earl Grey. Who knew? The head of the council, a being of pure energy contained within a suit that looked suspiciously like a 3-piece business attire, floated forward. Mr. Johnson, it said, its voice crackling with both electricity and skepticism. Are you telling us that you've created a drive capable of passing through every conceivable point in every conceivable universe simultaneously? Dave's grin threatened to split his face in two. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds crazy. But yes, that's exactly what we're saying. But the implications, sputtered another council member, this one a sentient cloud of gas, the ability to be everywhere and everyone at once, it's all infinitely improbable? Dave supplied helpfully. The council chamber descended into chaos once again. Some members were excitedly discussing the possibilities, others were having existential crises on the spot, and one particularly overwhelmed individual had simply turned itself inside out. Dave leaned over to Professor Zix Norp. I'd say they're taking it pretty well, wouldn't you? Zix Norp's eye stalk swiveled wildly. Mr. Johnson, I've been meaning to ask, did we really create an infinite item probability drive? Because I was there for the entire project and I'm still not entirely sure what happened. Dave chuckled, patting the alien on what he hoped was its shoulder. Zix, my friend, let me let you in on a little secret. Half the time we humans have no idea what we're doing either. We just act confident and hope for the best. But that's terrifying. Zix Norp exclaimed. Exactly, Dave beamed. Welcome to the human experience, buddy. As the council slowly regained order, the head member floated back to the center of the chamber. Mr. Johnson, it said, its voice a mixture of awe and trepidation. If what you say is true, this discovery could revolutionize everything we know about space travel, physics, and, well, everything. Dave nodded. Yep, that's kind of our thing. Revolutionizing stuff, I mean, you should see what we did to the concept of fast food. Talk about improbable meat. The council member's energy field flickered, a sign of deep thought. We will need to see this device for ourselves, of course, and run extensive tests, and probably rewrite every safety protocol in existence. Oh, absolutely, Dave agreed. Safety first, that's our motto. Well, safety third, actually. After hold my beer and watch this, of course. And so, dear readers, the galaxy found itself on the brink of a new era. An era where the impossible was not just possible, but probably happening somewhere right now. An era where the answer to life, the universe, and everything was no longer 42. But why not? In the years that followed, the infinite improbability drive changed everything. Galactic civilization expanded faster than ever before, reaching parts of the universe previously thought unreachable. New forms of life were discovered, new planets were explored, and on at least 3 occasions, someone accidentally turned themselves into a potted penium. They got better, mostly, but perhaps the most significant change was in the galactic mindset. The aliens, who had once prided themselves on their careful, methodical approach to science, had learned to embrace the chaotic, the improbable, the downright ridiculous. They had learned to think like humans. Universities across the galaxy now offered courses in applied improbability and advanced whoopsie-daisy theory. The most prestigious scientific award was no longer the Galactic Nobel Prize, but the Hold My Beer Cup, given annually to the scientist who made the most improbable breakthrough while saying, "Watch this." And Dave Johnson became a legend. Statues were erected in his honor on 1,000 worlds, usually depicting him with a lab coat in one hand and a fire extinguisher in the other. His catchphrase, "It's only impossible until some idiot proves it's not," became the motto of scientists everywhere. But our intrepid human hero wasn't content to rest on his laurels. No, Dave had his sights set on an even greater challenge. "You know," he said to Professor Zixnorp one day, as they watched a group of young aliens attempting to teleport a black hole, "Don't ask, I've been thinking." Zixnorp's tentacles instinctively tied themselves into knots. He had learned that when Dave started thinking, it was time to update his life insurance. "Oh," he said cautiously. "What about?" Dave's eyes twinkled with that all-too-familiar mix of mischief and madness. "Well, we've conquered the realm of science, right? Made the impossible possible, turned the improbable into the everyday." "Yes," Zixnorp agreed warily. And I'm thinking, what's next? What's the next frontier for human-inspired insanity? I mean, innovation?" Zixnorp's eye stalks quivered. "Surely not." Dave's grin widened. "Oh yes, my tentacled friend, it's time we tackled the greatest challenge of all. The one realm that has resisted logic and reason since the dawn of time." "Ah, you don't mean?" "Oh, but I do," Dave said, his voice filled with unholy glee. "We're going to apply the hold my beer method to politics, and somewhere in the vast expanse of the universe, reality itself let out a long-suffering sigh. The chaos was just beginning. But that, dear readers, is a story for another time. For now, let us raise a glass or tentacle or pseudopod to Dave Johnson, the human who taught the galaxy to embrace the impossible, to laugh in the face of logic, and above all, to always ask what if. Because in a universe of infinite improbabilities, the most improbable thing of all might just be us. End of story.